My name is Linda, and I'm celebrating my 32nd birthday this year. I work as a salesperson. My husband, Ryan, was my classmate in high school. Our love story began in high school and then blossomed into a long-distance relationship during college. Despite the distance, our love endured, and we married right after graduation. This year, we're celebrating our 10th wedding anniversary. Our enduring love has blessed us with our eldest daughter, Lily, who is now 9 years old. I'm currently expecting our second child, and although I'm incredibly excited, this pregnancy is different. Unlike my first pregnancy, I've noticed significant changes in my health this time around. With the long working hours, I've experienced nausea and extreme drowsiness, symptoms I didn't have during my first pregnancy. Perhaps this is due to my age, which makes it harder to recover from fatigue, or maybe it's the stress of balancing work and childcare. After considering various possibilities, a home pregnancy test confirmed the news. While juggling my job as a salesperson with my morning sickness, I decided to take time off after consulting my manager. When I discussed it with Ryan, he seemed surprised and concerned by the severity of my morning sickness this time. His memories of giving birth to Lily contrasted sharply with my current situation. He encouraged me to take a break from work, wishing me a speedy recovery. During my time off, I found that my morning sickness persisted and even worsened. Despite being at home, I struggled with my daily tasks and spent most of my days in bed. At first, Ryan seemed concerned, but his attitude quickly changed, and he appeared frustrated by my situation. I felt he probably thought that since I wasn't working, I should at least do some housework. Because I couldn't even manage the simplest tasks, I felt ashamed and sorry for Ryan, who was so busy with his job. His change in behavior became apparent when our warm morning hugs turned into silent goodbyes, and he often came home late, claiming he was working overtime. Ryan handles tasks like preparing documents, data entry, and answering phone calls at work. While overtime was a regular part of his job, he reduced it after Lily was born, so he could spend more time with her. As breadwinners, we tried to divide household chores equally, but lately he hasn't been helping as much, and overtime has become the norm. Perhaps the reduced income from my leave has pushed Ryan to work harder for our family. He might prefer that I handle all the housework, but while I understand his perspective, meeting his expectations has been difficult due to my severe morning sickness. One night, I mustered my courage and asked for his help, praising his efforts and explaining my limitations. Ryan, clearly annoyed, insisted on the importance of his work overtime and demanded I take care of the housework, completely disregarding my situation. I pleaded with him to understand and help, suggesting he come home a little earlier to assist with the chores. Ryan raised his voice in frustration and warned me against waking Layla. I apologized repeatedly, trying to calm him down, but he simply retreated to our bedroom without listening to me. His unusually intense anger worried me, and I suspected he had other reasons. The next morning, Ryan left for work earlier than usual, seemingly avoiding me after last night's argument. Hurt by his rejection, I sighed and sat down, only to find Lily joining me. She had overheard our conversation and expressed her shock at her father's behavior. She found it awful that he hadn't listened to me, especially with me pregnant and suffering from morning sickness, a completely out of character for him. It was terrifying. In a gesture of disbelief, Lily opened her arms wide and urged me to rest, apologizing for not helping with the chores until then. From that morning onward, Lily began actively helping with the housework, something she had learned from a young age. I relied on her with complete confidence. It was difficult for me to see my daughter's kindness blossom. However, my strained relationship with my husband continued. He consistently left home early and returned late, and our communication dwindled. As the due date for our second child approached, my anxiety about our relationship intensified. Just when I thought our relationship was beyond repair, Lily surprised me one evening with unexpected news. Her face pale, she revealed that something was wrong, but explained that she wasn't in pain, just nauseous. Worried, I asked her, tears welling in her eyes, and Lily told me she'd seen my father and Sophie's mother kissing on their way home from school. Sophie was Lily's best friend and a frequent visitor to our house. Overwhelmed with grief, Lily burst into tears on my chest. The man I'd thought irreplaceable had suddenly become the object of hatred because of this affair. Fueled by anger and pain, I vowed revenge and resolved to gather evidence of my husband's infidelity. Despite suffering from severe morning sickness, I began my investigation while he was away. To my astonishment, I discovered numerous receipts for designer handbags and hotel reservations I had never seen before. This blatant disregard only intensified my anger, and I was determined to uncover the truth. Upon closer examination, I realized these receipts raised serious questions about the source of the funds I had spent on such extravagant purchases. While I was out of breath, I remembered something, and driven by an overwhelming desire to ascertain the truth, I managed to reach the bank despite my pregnancy. I realized I hadn't left the house in ages, something I rarely did due to my persistent morning sickness. I felt unwell, but I braved the sunlight and made my way to the bank. With trembling hands and a heavy heart, clutching my bank book, I was confronted with a reality I'd hoped to avoid. As I'd suspected, Ryan's frequent purchases of luxury goods like designer handbags had been deducted from our joint account. This alone infuriated me, but the shock deepened when I discovered that despite his claims of working overtime, Ryan's pay hadn't increased. His company, known for its employee welfare policies, was supposed to raise his salary for the extra hours, but nothing had changed. It turned out that Ryan's delay in repaying the money was due to an affair with Sophie's mother, not the overtime he'd claimed. I was devastated, especially in the midst of a difficult pregnancy, which caused me immense pain. One evening, while Ryan was showering, I bravely snatched his smartphone. My hands trembled with nervousness as I unlocked it, taking advantage of his assumption that morning sickness had dulled my senses. In the chat app, I found conversations that clearly confirmed his affair with Sophie's mother. "Ryan, I told my wife I have overtime, so we can meet up tonight." Sophie's mom: "Really? Can we meet up tonight? I'm dying to see you." Their conversation was punctuated by awkward heart emojis. While such a betrayal would have driven anyone with strong feelings to distraction, my emotions had shifted, allowing me to calmly focus on gathering evidence. While scrolling through his recent texts, I discovered plans for a week-long trip starting at the end of the week, including various hikes. My husband hadn't mentioned it, he hadn't known about it. Curious to know what excuse he'd come up with on the day of the trip, I waited patiently. Finally, the morning of the trip arrived. Despite it being a day off, Ryan had been busy preparing since early morning. I asked him why he was so busy, and he seemed flustered, claiming he had a week-long business trip that he thought he'd told me about. He promised to buy me a nice souvenir. I mentioned my birthday, but he ignored it. After Lily heard the commotion, she woke up and asked her father what was going on. Ryan repeated his story about the business trip, and Lily pretended to agree, wishing him luck. Ryan left the house with a forced smile. After he left, Lily and I exchanged glances and burst out laughing, noticing the tremor in his voice as he lied. After a long laugh, we began discussing our next steps. I told Lily I was considering divorce, and that I believed it was important to hear her opinion. Lily, who was only 9, said she thought divorce would be best for me, adding that she felt ashamed and didn't like that her father was unfaithful. She was sure Sophie would feel the same. Throughout our conversation, Lily seemed worried about Sophie's situation. She explained that Sophie's mother had been relaxing at home and doing nothing, but had suddenly disappeared, which had upset Sophie deeply. Just as my father had betrayed our trust, it seemed that Sophie's mother had betrayed her daughter's trust as well. Hearing this, I felt strongly that there was no room for leniency when it came to getting revenge on them both. I told Lily that Sophie was going through a difficult time too, and that we needed to punish them both. I felt a powerful urge I'd never imagined before. Resolutely, I took action. First, to prevent Ryan from spending any money, I canceled our credit cards. I decided it was essential to split the savings in our joint account fairly, so I transferred half to my account. To avoid disputes over property division in the event of a divorce, I decided to secure my assets early. Lily and I started packing. I had already explained the situation to my parents, so we decided to move back into their house. I reiterated to Lily that once we were divorced, we wouldn't be able to return to that house, and she agreed. Lily seemed optimistic, not sad or depressed about the divorce, but rather cheerful, which reassured me. We moved back into my parents' house with immense joy. I decided to leave the house filled with memories of Ryan and start a new chapter in my life. This decision came after I discovered messages between Ryan and Sophie's mother, in which Ryan expressed his desire to leave as soon as possible and asked for a divorce so he could live with her. From the messages, it seemed that Sophie's mother had already returned to her parents' house. I couldn't believe that she would abandon her family, including her young daughter, for an affair, only to return to her parents' house out of selfishness. I discovered from his car's GPS that Ryan had visited Sophie's mother's parents' house. I packed his belongings and sent them to that address, then terminated our lease. This way, my husband could live freely with Sophie's mother, as he had insisted. After moving out, I felt a great sense of relief and was ready to begin a new chapter in my life. The next morning, I received an early call from my husband. He apologized, saying he was running out of money and asked me to transfer some. I told him that since he was away on a business trip, he might be able to borrow from a colleague. I said I was suffering from severe morning sickness and found it difficult to speak, then hung up despite his protests. My husband's calls didn't stop. I sent him a message saying I was suffering from severe morning sickness and couldn't answer the phone, and asked him not to call again. No matter how many times he tried to call, I didn't answer. A few days later, I received another call and reluctantly answered. Ryan asked why the house was empty and what was going on. When I mentioned he was supposed to be away on a week-long trip, he seemed stunned at first, but quickly became furious. I told him I knew about his affair and that I was going to divorce him, sending all our belongings to Sophie's parents' house. I told him everything was going his way and wished him well. When he realized I knew about his affair and who the other woman was, he seemed very affected. I hung up and deleted all his contacts from my phone. My husband found no refuge but Sophie's parents' house. There, Sophie's mother was kneeling with her head bowed, facing her parents, her husband, and Sophie, all looking furious. It seemed Sophie's mother had returned home claiming she could no longer endure her husband's emotional abuse. Her parents believed her and felt sorry for her, but the truth was different. Having discovered her lies and infidelity, there was no way they could forgive her. Sophie's mother and my husband were severely reprimanded, forced to sign divorce papers in front of everyone, and ordered to pay alimony. Afterward, her parents evicted them from the house. Since moving back in with my parents, Lily and I have been living a free life. My anxieties have subsided, and my morning sickness has lessened, allowing me to return to work after my maternity leave. Lily seems happy every day playing with her grandparents after school. The divorce proceedings went smoothly thanks to my lawyer's support. I had sufficient evidence which allowed the divorce to be finalized in my favor. To secure my ex-husband's income, I filed for alimony and child support and sent a letter to his company asking them not to let him resign. His manager, a married man with children, saw the letter and was furious. He negotiated with the company to deduct the alimony and child support from my ex-husband's salary. With this manager constantly monitoring my ex-husband's actions, even if he faces challenges at work, it seems unlikely he will be able to leave his job easily. My ex-husband is in financial difficulty because he spent a lot of money on his mistress's extravagant lifestyle. Moreover, after losing his home, he was forced to live in cheap company student housing, making it even harder for him to quit his job easily. Sophie and her father have found peace now. Sophie has accepted her parents' divorce and seems to be smiling more than before. She told Lily that she really enjoys living with her father. I felt so relieved to know that Sophie is living a happy life. Shortly after, I gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. My ex-husband's inability to hold my beloved son in his arms demonstrates his profound stupidity. When Lily saw her little brother, she squealed with joy. I gazed upon the faces of my beloved daughter and son and vowed to raise them well.
अंधेरी दीवारों में खुद को ढूंढता हूँ मैं, ये जो दिन सहाने थे उन्हीं को सोचता हूँ मैं। तुम्हारे बिन ये मौसम भी बड़ा बेसर्द लगता है। दिल का हर एक कोना अब बहुत ही दूर भरता है। अंधेरी दीवारों में खुद को ढूंढता हूँ मैं, ये जो दिन सुहाने थे उन्हीं को सोचता हूँ मैं। तुम्हारे बिन ये मौसम भी बड़ा सर्द लगता है। दिल का हर एक कोना अब बहुत ही दूर भरता है। मेरे साए भी मुझसे अब जुदा होने को कहते हैं। तुझे खोने की राहों में ये आंसू बहने लगते। बस रह गया दर्द का असर, दर्द का असर।